So now the next portion is creating a detail view. That is being able to click on one of these and actually see its details, right? We can obviously put out the details, or maybe not obviously, but we definitely can put out more details for any given object on this list view for sure. But we want to have dedicated views for seeing that individual item. I mean, each project is going to be different, but in our case, I mean, if you think about it with e-commerce, you will see a list of products, click on one, and then get a lot more details about those products. That's what we're doing. So it's actually very similar to the list view, but instead of list view, it's detail view. And there's a couple things that are a little bit different about it, but what I'm going to do is go ahead and copy the product list view items and just change it to product detail view. Detail view, change the template to detail and product detail view, and that's it. Okay, so let's do our imports on URLs. And there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and copy these URLs that we already had and paste below them. And we'll do product detail view as view and then product detail view. I did mention that we would show you what this looks like, the error if it's not callable. So let's look at that real quick. It says takes one positional argument, but two were given. Okay. Oh, wait, let's just leave this out for a second. Comment those out. Okay. So it's still not giving me what I wanted. So I'll just say as view. Still same thing. Change it to as view. There, works. So those are the errors if you don't do it as view. Okay, so back to the details. So now what we need is the ability to understand when these things change. So I'm going to put in a regular expression here. And what it is literally to check IDs. Okay. And I'm actually going to call it PK, not ID. So regular expressions, this is just matching to make sure that if I go to 1, it actually registers. If I go to 2, it actually registers, and so on. That is how you actually handle details. So this right here is a keyword argument that's going to do the lookups for us. Okay. So where do these numbers come from and where do the regular expressions come from? Now, to read about our common regular expressions, I do recommend that you check out this article on our blog because that will actually show you a little bit more about using these patterns. So in our case, we're just doing an ID or a number that's related to any given product. So where do those numbers come from? Let's go ahead and take a look. If we go into the admin, click on products and click on either one of these, let's say t-shirt, I see there's a number up here. If I change this number to 3, I get hat. If I change it to 4, I get a warning saying product with ID 4 does not exist. Perhaps it was deleted. Right? It's showing me a warning that that product doesn't exist. In fact, if we do products for here, it also saying that no product found matching the query. So what exactly is that query? We learn from the function-based view on what that query is. So the function-based view is no longer this query. So this is a query set. Instead, what it is it's looking to get that primary key. So the primary key is actually being passed to this view. So let's actually look at products-fpv4. Product detail got unexpected keyword argument PK. So that means that I have to add it in here as PK. So remember these args, if I also added it in as args, I could probably print out, args and even keyword args, because this is actually a keyword argument. As it says here, unexpected keyword argument. It's not just unexpected argument. So what if I printed out those things? So print out args and keyword args. It goes away, that error goes away, and we see the args and keyword args are here. PK of 4 is actually being passed. So again, I could say pk equals to, or pk equals to none here, and then we can do args and keyword args after. I refresh again, and I scroll up a little bit. Now those are empty because we handled that the primary key, or that's what that pk stands for, is primary key. So from here, we can go one step further, and that is actually getting that object. So we can say object equals now to get pk equals to pk. So every single Django object by default has this thing called a primary key, which is also the ID. So I can also say ID equals to that, which I'll let you experiment with on your own. But basically, it's a number that automatically increments no matter what. Every time you create a new object, it automatically makes its own ID. So if you have 1,000 objects, object 1,000 would have the ID of 1,000. That's kind of the general idea. Object 365 would have the ID of object 365. So with this, I'll actually, instead of call it object, I'll call it instance, and then I'll put in my context as object and put in that instance. Okay, so now we've got this detail view. If I refresh in here, I'll see that I actually have an exception here. It says product matching query does not exist. If I change it to the class-based view, it just says product not found. So there's actually a quick way to handle that, and that is get object or 404. So we're going to come down here, and roughly that same call is instance equals to get object or 404 product, and then pk equals to pk. Then I can comment that out, refresh in here. It's no longer an exception. It's the exact same error that we saw with the class-based view. So the next thing is the context. So the class-based view context is what we want to see. So we can, compare the two. That's the point. So get context data. Again, I have to use the detail view here. So we're calling the superclassed version or the default of the context data. And we're just printing out what that default is. And then we're returning it. Yes, you can absolutely add context here, much like you add it down here. But there's a lot of times that you really just don't need to add context. I mean, most of the time you probably won't have to, but a lot of times you might want to, and that's how you would do it. Okay, so let's refresh in here. Product not found. Let's go to one that is found, and that's number 3. We want to see this error, template does not exist. We go to the terminal, and I'm going to just scroll up before that error, and there is all my stuff. So I've got object. Yes, that's why I named this object. And then you got a few other things too, but object is the key one here. So just like we did in list, I'm going to come in here and call this detail.html. And I'm actually just going to copy this portion and put it in here. But instead of obj, because our context is actually object, that is it, right? So the context right here is object, so I do that. If the context was ABC, I would do ABC. And since it's an instance, that is, it's an actual object, I can use that dot notation to get the fields. So description also would come in there. Cool. So let's refresh here. What do we know? This is hat. This is my hat. If we go to 1, this is an awesome t-shirt. Buy it. 2, page not found, because that object does not exist anymore. If you remember, we deleted it. So that's it. That is list and detail. The next big things are create, update, and delete. Stay with us.